Twitch gameplay, strategy, coordination and precise aim make Valorant one to look out for. But is the Counter-Strike-like playstyle and feel for you? Let's find out. Valorant has been around for a while now, a couple years, and is therefore no longer the new guy on the block. In this time, they've done their best to draw the crowds from its main competitor, Counter-Strike, but adds modern twists that are more expected from games these days. The game is highly tactical, with extremely quick time to kill, and maps that are relatively small with plenty of angles to peek from. The design of the maps are particularly impressive, because they promote the more subtle, tactical style of gunplay by needing to hold good angles around corners, providing built-in counterplay to camping spots. The usage of agents offers a touch of flair to express your playstyle in a way unseen by this type of game, with the opportunity to define roles that teams can play around. As a new player, the game can feel extremely difficult and punishing at first. You just die and have to wait for everyone else for the round to end, and when it's you at the bottom of that scoreboard, it can feel like you're just wasting your time. But on the flip side, it makes those kills so much more rewarding when things go well, something I keenly remember from Counter-Strike. As you get better, you realise that there's layer upon layer of game knowledge that you have to learn, which isn't at all obvious when starting out, turning what looks like quite a simple game to an outsider into possibly a competitive FPS player's dream.
We jump back into Valorant for the first time this year to see what's changed and let you guys know whether it's worth playing in 2022. The first thing that will probably stand out to people is the similarities with Counter-Strike. Valorant has essentially taken the winning formula of the popular Counter-Strike gameplay, level design and team-based tactics, and added their own twist with hero powers, new gameplay mechanics, and a bright new aesthetic. And to be honest, this isn't a bad thing, and it breathed new life into a genre that needed something fresh. Unlike most of the things that Riot touched, the end result was pretty great for the target audience. While yes, there were annoyances like unbalanced lobbies, toxic teammates, smurfing, and a few irritating mechanics, like being stuck in place when you get shot at, the game did show some great design choices. The maps were excellent for the most part. The unpredictable recoil and the need to stay still while shooting means that you can't just charge in and spray and pray like other shooters. You have to use teamwork, positioning, and a Twitch style of aiming that I found I am objectively bad at. I personally take Apex over Valorant any day, but to its credit, Valorant provides a refreshed experience to players that love this particular genre. First off, there are a lot of agents to choose from. Controllers are agents that are experts in blocking the vision of the enemy, to ultimately give your team an advantage. Duelists are the self-sufficient fraggers who are expected through their abilities and skills to get kills in their team and seek out engagements. Initiators challenge angles by setting their team up to enter contested ground and push defenders away. And Sentinels are defensive experts who can lock down areas and watch flanks. Ultimately, these agents will give you unique abilities to suit your playstyle, or allow you to fill specific roles within your team. Breach, for example, can flash the opposition through walls, stunning the enemies ready for you or your teammates to finish them off. Sova uses his bow to spot the opposition and give key information to your team. And others do anything from creating walls of ice, to block off lanes, to burning oppositions with walls of fire, and even healing. Whoever you decide to play will likely be an agent that matches the style of gameplay you particularly like. You will have to unlock the majority of these, so it's worth jumping online to find out who does what before you unlock a character that you don't really enjoy playing. Moving on to the weapons, they are not too dissimilar in Valorant compared to the ones in Counter-Strike. You have your snipers, assault rifles, pistols, shotguns, and they all perform specific roles within the team. You're not going to want to hold a long to mid-range angle with a shotgun when the enemy team has a sniper covering the same area. Similarly, unless you have pinpoint accurate aim, you're not going to want to find yourself in a close space against a shotgun if you have a bow action rifle. The weapons you choose will define the role you play, and good players will be very careful about the weapons they choose and the agent combination they decide to pair them with. Overall, the weapons aren't bad, but some of them do feel a lot worse than others, which means that only a select few weapons end up being played in the game. In addition, the inconsistency with some of the recoil patterns and some wobbly hit detection makes some weapons really frustrating to use. Moving on to maps, there are currently 7 maps in Valorant, and for the most part they are all great. There's plenty of variation in the setting, design and feel, and some maps have their own quirks and twists to mix up gameplay, such as zip lines and teleporters. There's also a nice mix of verticality to add some complexity and give you something else to think about. In general, each map has 2 points in which to plant the bomb, or in Valorant, the spike. You'll need to place this spike and detonate it to win as the attackers, or prevent it from being placed and defuse it to win as the defenders. To achieve this, you need to outplay the enemy team, and the map design gives you ample ways to do just that. There are plenty of angles, hidey holes, corners to wait around, debris or objects to take advantage of, and corridors, alleys and buildings to help you outplay your opponents. Taking a look at game modes, the main game mode is a 5v5 traditional attack and defend mode. Here you'll have a chance to play as both attackers and defenders, and you'll need to get more wins than the enemy team. The first team to win 13 rounds wins the match. And to be honest, Nix and I found that 13 rounds was pretty long. And you can play this ranked or unranked. You also have Spike Rush, which is a faster game mode with the same rules. However, there are fewer rounds and the weapon loadouts are randomized. We probably had the most fun here due to the quicker nature of the games, and the fact that we experienced less of a skill gap in the matchmaking between teams. Other game modes include Deathmatch, a 12-player free-for-all, Escalation, where teams race through a set of weapons and abilities, and Replication, where all players have to play as the same agent. So if you get tired of the standard game, you're free to mix things up and jump into something a little different. And now the graphics and the audio. Like most Riot products, the look of the overall game is fantastic. Everything from the art style to the colours make a vibrant and pleasant experience. And while the graphics aren't groundbreaking, they're an excellent combination of good model design and great style. Throughout the entirety of our playtime, the game ran great on my mid-level PC, which is exactly what you want when reaction times and awareness are so important. Overall, when it comes to the visuals, Riot have done a really good job here. The audio was a little less impressive for us. For the most part, this was fine. Gunshots and ability powers gave positions away as expected, meaning that you can track down enemy players if they give themselves away by shooting. But the footsteps were a little off for us. The noise of your teammates was excessively loud compared to the noise made by the opposition. And while this did make it clear who was on your team and who wasn't, there were quite a number of times where it became off-putting, and the teammate footsteps felt oddly loud in contrast to the rest of the game.
With the game design in mind, it's clear who Valorant is aimed towards. Competitive, tactical FPS players who either have a lot of time spent in Counter-Strike and are looking for something more in line with the modern day, or newer players that prefer this slower, more high-stakes PvP experience, where there isn't much competition from other FPS games. It's important to point out how different our experience was as new players compared to when playing the game for a long while. The unforgiving nature of having worse aim than your opponent or worse positioning can lead to some feeling pretty deflated. To add to this, each weapon has unique spray patterns that have a high element of randomization associated with them. New players will just feel like the gun doesn't do what they expect, but over time you may get used to the fact that movement skews your accuracy as well as the recoil patterns which need to be learned to some degree. We would describe the gameplay as a mixture of slow and fast paced. There's no sprint, so players aren't playing run and gun, but some agent abilities and the quick time to kill means most engagements are make or break and over in the blink of an eye. The selection of weapons look and feel minimal at first, however once you're playing more tactically and ranked, and for example needing to save cash one round, we could see a use for basically every weapon, which in some sense for an esport is better than having a lot of weapons where only a small selection get any playtime. All in all, Valorant is a solid title, which has such a particular FPS style that there'll be those that love it and of course those that don't. But just bear in mind that the new player experience can be a bit unforgiving until you learn how the agent abilities work and even the nuance of the gunplay, something we didn't enjoy all too much, but each to their own. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below and we'll see you in the next one.